What's up, Starcraft fans? This video is brought to you by Endarthe, who is supporting on Patreon. Polls counting tier supporters are high are guaranteed one video redemption per month. This month we requested the Nova Wiki review. So we have Eveling in the call box today. How are you, Eveling?
A little ragged, but carrying on.
Carrying on. You know what? I can empathize with that. We are all a little rugged over the past couple of weeks, especially me. My work has been like intense lately, and uh yeah, so much stuff going on, and I have to just I'm barely keeping up. Anyway, that's not relevant. What is relevant is the first slide. So here we have the introduction to Nova. Nothing really to speak of here. Is there anything that stands out?
It's very straightforward. Nova as a commander is pretty straightforward. A lot of players like her, so in general, most of this weekly review is going to be pretty spot on due to the sheer number of Nova fanboys out there.
Nova fanboys. All right. Next up, we have some basic information. What do you think about this one?
It's very spot on. Strengths, a very good early offensive because it has hero, late game dominance. Her units are extremely strong, especially when you got all their upgrades.
And defensive
High
drone.
burst damage and very defensive too. So they are pretty tanky if you play it right. If you never use defensive drone, that's on you, the player, and when your units start
Skill
dying,
issue.
that
That's
yeah,
true.
kind of a skill issue.
That's true. I
And
even agree with the
weakness,
weaknesses. Right?
yes. Oh, definitely. It requires heavy micro, and therefore that's why if your units start dropping like flies, it's kind of a skill issue of
Kind of. I
knowing when
guess
to deploy your defensive drones and know when to leave the fight with Griffin airlift or whatnot.
I guess the one exception to heavy micro is if you're using the third prestige, where you can just kind of casually micro Nova around without the enemy noticing, and then just casually clear stuff. It is still micro, but not as heavy as the other prestiges. Anyway, let's move on. Next up, we have an overview of how Nova the Commander works. What do you think about this one?
Very straight on. It allows her playstyle to not really focus too much on the macro portion of it,
Oh yeah,
unlike Jimmy.
yeah.
So you can focus directly on the combat and your units, and hence why a lot of players gravitate toward what is because of this fact that no one wants to play base building all day and
Speak for
trying to
yourself. I
micro at the
like
same
playing
time.
base building all day. That's why I play Starcraft.
And microing your units out all the time to make sure they're not getting nuked by going nuclear or
That's true.
other shenanigans like power overwhelming.
That's
Yeah,
true. Yeah.
that's
Though I guess how
we
it.
do find
Yeah.
some enjoyment of it because we're sickos, but that's why we
We're
play
not
the game
normal
like this.
people.
But for your casual players, it's sometimes it's a little too much, and I understand, and that's
Yeah,
why
that's
Nova is
completely
much
understandable.
more geared toward.
For most players, the aspect of StarCraft of having to manage everything is a bit overwhelming. I've always said that StarCraft is more of a management game. You have to manage what you have to do. You have to manage your resources, limited resources of attention and time and ability to click buttons that you can't actually do everything that you want to do, and that it's just a matter of prioritizing what you need to do most importantly. But yeah, I agree that having Nova as a commander alleviates a lot of that. Just the fact that you don't have to build so many barracks, so many factories, you just need one of each, right?
Correct.
And you don't even
And I
need.
would like to just
Yeah.
would like to expand upon the mention of time. So I do encounter some players that they're kind of can see that they're twiddling their thumbs, trying to figure out what to do next. In StarCraft or in general, like throughout your lifestyle, you should not be just waiting and figuring out what to do. You should be actively, okay, if I don't have something productive to do, I can I know there's another task that needs to be done. So, for example, if like our last mutation foul play, if I have nothing else better to do, I can go around and hunt turkeys, and that will help create supply for me and my ally, which I've
Absolutely.
encountered a lot this week, where
100%.
ally is just sitting there
Just sitting there
looking
not
at a
doing
turkey.
anything.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess that's the aspect of StarCraft uh that doesn't really attach to people that quickly. I understand that a game is meant to be chill and fun. StarCraft as a game,
Mhm.
yes, can be that. You can still win, but if you want to excel, you need to get in the mindset that you always need to be doing something. You always need to be spending your money constantly to get stuff to be better, to get more powerful. And when you're powerful and you're not doing anything, you should be in the mindset of, well, where should I go next? Where should I attack next? And that's just to keep yourself busy all the time so that your actions per minute rises naturally and organically as you're doing stuff instead of just spamming buttons and then complaining that StarCraft is too intense of a game. Anyway, I think we've talked enough about this, but yeah, Nova. The main point is that Nova alleviates a lot of that having to think of what to build and where to build it because you don't need to build a lot, just one of each production structure, and no depots required, no overlords, no pilots required. Just get your production down at the start of the game, and then the rest of the game is all about making units and attacking. That's it. That's how simple Nova is. Anyway, let's move on. Next slide. Next up, we have info that's on Nova's basic information in game and the mastery choices for Nova. What do you think about this one?
So mastery choices. I she's this is stating facts. Mastery choices. It Some of it is I can agree with. Some of it is a little hokey. The one that is stands out is he's recommending attack speed over Nova primary ability improvement. Okay, so the mastery choices, these are pretty straightforward. It's what's listed in the stats when
Yeah,
you look through
these are just
her
literal
mastery
facts.
allocations.
Yeah, literal fact.
Nothing to dispute.
All right. Nothing really to. Well, I guess the info here recommended for experienced players. I would also recommend Nova for beginners, to be honest. I would recommend Nova also for basically players of all levels. If I would rather actually, I don't know if this is controversial. I would rather new players play Nova than Rainer. What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Just to give I guess, background information. Nova
Yes.
was the first paid commander I ever purchased, and I was lucky to get her
Oh.
when they actually had sales on co-op commanders. So I got her for like what? I think it was like $3 or 250.
I actually
So
forgot who my
I
first paid commander is, but I remember a lot of the earlier commanders just got gifted to me. So I'm one of the lucky ones. But I did
mm,
eventually reach the point where I could just purchase commanders because I knew I would, make my money back essentially. Anyway, control Nova and her army of elite. Yes, yes. Use advanced tech. Yes, everything here is straightforward. The only thing I would say is that not recommend for experienced players. Recommend for players of all skill levels. Everyone will have one with Nova. That could have been worded
unlike
better.
Chippy.
Anyway, let's move on. Next slide, we have the statement of what the prestiges are and what they do. Anything to note here?
Pretty straightforward. It's what's listed in the game.
All right, let's move on. Next, we have a description of Nova's game unit. There's a section below here with more facts, but about this basic paragraph here, what do you think about this?
It's pretty straightforward in terms of what Nova has at her disposal.
All right.
The last sentence says Nova takes 4 minutes to spawn at the base. If ever killed, she will spawn in 9 seconds. It doesn't. It will mention it later, but it doesn't mention that you can throw money at her to make her respawn quicker. That's
You
about
can,
it.
you can throw money at her to make her respawn quicker is one of the things that we could probably word better. Anyway, that is true though. There's another thing that I could probably say better, but Nova is the cheapest unit of our entire army because you can just spend 500 minerals and decreasing at that to revive her every time she dies. So let's move on. Next up, we have Mastery Strategies. What do you think about this one?
What's stated regarding the masteries, kind of up to personal preference. So let's hit them one by one. Griffin airstrike cost, usually yes. The Griffin airstrike cost is the preferred way to go, unless you're using P2, because usually Nova is going to float minerals depending upon your mutation. And if you're floating minerals, best way to do it is to send something that does a heck a lot of damage. Amon cannot do anything to stop it other than destroying your mineral line,
Yeah.
and it can wipe out entire waves. So that, or for the most part, you wanna put all 30 points into it, unless you have a reason not to.
Well, I
Unit
have a
attack
reason
speed.
not to. If you're using the third prestige, you want the nuke and hold. You want the nuke available every time. I think with the mastery, the cooldown's like 2.5 minutes, something like that. You get
Mhm.
a nuke every 2.5 minutes, and the nuke is humongous. So I think if you
Yep.
use the third prestige, you actually want the nuke cooldown. But continue.
Unit attack speed. Nova's army greatly benefits from the unit attack speed, but should you be dumping everything into it? I don't think so. The good thing is he does mention about the breakpoints for primary ability improvement
Yeah,
to snipe certain things, but it doesn't stop at 8. There are other breakpoints at like I think 22 or 23 that are very significant for
Dead of Night.
taking down Dead of Night and taking out certain other units. I think the key one that Tutu mentions are immortals.
Mm-hmm. What's the breakpoint for that?
I think it's 25
25.
to one shot a immortal. You'd have to double check me. It
I
You can
probably
determine breakpoints on s starcraft2coop.com.
Yeah, I probably
Uh,
never have to check the breakpoints for immortals because I usually let my liberators do that.
mhm.
Imagine
Yep.
using Nova to fight immortals. That's like a waste of time, to be honest. Anyway, uh,
Tell Tutu that.
what immortals?
And then the
Immortals are
last one,
better, or rather, liberators are better at fighting immortals. Anyway, yeah, last one.
uh, combat unit life regeneration. I disagree. Yeah, the combat unit life regeneration is not all that helpful because they have to be out of combat for 10 seconds. So if you're dumping your all full 30 points into this, and I don't think you are getting the most out of Nova.
10 points. 10 points. 10 seconds is a pretty big deal in StarCraft 2. Like that could be the difference between victory and defeat in some cases. So I kind of agree with this one. The exception is the alternate here is Nova Energy Regen. That I don't actually use Nova Energy Regen in when I go for the third prestige, because when I'm using the third prestige I never need any extra regen for Nova. So it's a might as well sort of thing when I put points into combat unit life regen. Do you agree?
I agree with the third prestige because Nova is kind of like a unhittable top bar that you're just sending out and not really dealing with, and you're relying on her units to actually defend home base or
Yeah,
holding ground or something to that extent. So yeah, having that extra regen,
it's a might as
knowing
well,
that,
right?
might as well,
Might as well.
because as long as you know your units are going to be out of and afford to be out of combat every 10 seconds or so. If it's a pretty intense mutation when they're always going to be
There's
harassed,
always
maybe
something,
not.
right?
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, for me that whenever I use the third prestige, the third power set is just a difference between getting a little tiny value versus not getting value at all. Because what I'm just waiting for my cooldowns on Nova's abilities, I don't get anything out of Nova energy regen. So I might as well go the other way. Anyway, prestige strategies.
So we'll go per prestige. So the first one, P1, Soldier of Fortune. It's a pretty dead on. I like the part where it makes note if your ally is a Protoss commander, putting chrono boost onto the production structures can definitely help offset,
The
especially
long
for your
cooldown.
secondary and third.
Yeah,
Yes. Or even if you're going hard on the first structure, it, reducing the cooldown on that can be significant too, as long as resources allow.
as long as resources allow, absolutely.
The second one, Tactical Dispatcher, definitely good points to it. The increased mobility is significant. Keep in mind that for P2, you still have you still have access to the Griffin airstrike, just not as frequent.
Yeah,
So that's where I mentioned earlier that I adjust my points accordingly because I mainly play P2 just for the fun of it.
that's interesting.
And I don't put as many points into Griffin airstrike because I know it's not going to be used that often.
Uh huh.
And I still, even with that being said, I am pretty usually strapped for minerals on P2 because I'm usually ferrying my tanks around, having
Interesting.
them drop spider mines all over the place, making good use of defensive drones.
Ah,
And I use the Griffin airlift a lot
that makes a lot
because
of sense.
being able to ferry tanks is pretty significant, and you just spam as when you drop your tanks. If you drop near an attack wave,
You better protect
you
those
as soon as
tanks.
you drop a defensive drone to protect the tanks, and then the tanks immediately deploy all their spider mines right in front of them.
Yes.
Because the beauty of Nova's spider mines is they activate instantly, unlike Jimmy's
Yeah.
spider mines take time. So it's a
Raider
huge
Spider Man
spike
should be
that
like that.
happens.
I wish
Yes, yes,
Rainer Spider Mice were more like that. That does sound way. That is those mice are way better than Rainers. Even though Rainer has that Cerberus mine upgrade, it's not as good as a mine that detonates right away. Anyway,
exactly.
I'm a little interested to learn that you actually shorten minerals because whenever I play Nova, my constraint is usually gas, because I need the
Mm,
gas to bring out the Liberators and the Ravens. For me, those are more powerful units, but I totally get the point because I did play that mech style before of making Goliath and siege tanks, which are actually more mineral intensive, and when you use the spider mines more frequently, and you use the airlift very frequently, that does lead to more usage of minerals. And I guess that's something for me to think of because maybe I don't use airstrike enough. Maybe I don't use defensive drone enough because I'm always gas starved when I'm playing as Nova. Anyway, continue.
are you ever encountering mineral starvation in general with
Very,
Nova? Because I know you.
very
Very,
infrequently. Sometimes I do, but
mm,
80% of the time when I'm short on something for Nova, I'm short on gas.
I see. I see. Fair
Yeah.
enough. All right, moving on. So third prestige, infiltration specialist. We've kind of already alluded to a lot what is noted here. So she goes out and unhindered. You can use your army as a backup, or you can have her support. Now, the part that have a little issue with is that Nova uh, is much less useful. No, I'd say she's extremely useful for what she is. It's just different usefulness.
Yeah, she's
She can
actually a lot
she can
useful here.
yeah. The the biggest demonstration of usefulness is I
Dead of
think
night.
when he did or the challenge that was it Uppetry and Grant? No, Uppetry and Subsorian. Yeah, so they made use of Carax and P3 Nova, and the fact that Nova can just go wherever she wants, provide vision, start laying down sabotage drones, and Carax can just lay down the hurt with lasers. That's a huge, huge upside. Your P1, P2, or your regular Nova can't go into that
Absolutely.
because not super close. So it's just different type of usefulness. You got to think differently.
Think different, like everyone else. Anyway, let's move on. This slide deals with Nova as a hero unit, so it talks about Nova as a hero unit as compared to, or well, Nova as a hero unit and the strategies for using Nova as a hero unit compared to others. So, what do you think about this one?
So Nova is a critical part of our army success. I would definitely agree with that, but you can afford to lose her. You can't afford to lose your Liberators and Ravens to a nuke just because they're time gated by their charges. So
Yeah, I think Nova's importance here does not does not uh, conflict with how losable she is. You can lose Nova, but that doesn't mean she's not important. She's still important, but you can lose her because you can also just respawn her as long as you have the minerals to pay for it.
Nova not being as durable as other hero units, definitely. We've all encountered losing Nova to
The hybrid
random
Yamato.
plasma blasts. Yeah,
Eh,
it's disheartening. We all know about it. We all know how to protect against it, but when you're trying to not lose your Liberators and Ravens, things of that sort, Nova gets kind of thrown to the wayside sometimes, and it's like, oh damn, I forgot about that aspect. I
the
should have
worst
put a
part
defensive
is
drone. Yeah.
the worst part is when you're mid nuke, and then the hybrid Yamato shoots her down, and then nuke cancels. That's the worst one.
One I just had just recently is like go to nuke, and because I underestimated the range of when how what she needs to cast a nuke, she steps in front of the army, and then it's like, "Hi, I'm here. I'm nuking you," and without my army's
He
protection,
gets focused down.
and she gets focused down immediately before I even could fathom dropping a defensive drone for her. And when
That's
she
very
gets wiped
sad.
out, when she's targeting a nuke is wasted. It goes back on cooldown, so it's not that the cooldown resets and you get another chance if you respawn her. No,
That's why you
it's
want super
it's
cloak.
completely. Yep.
Anyway, continue.
And then the last paragraph is what mentioned earlier. If she goes down, you can revive her for a minor cost. So usually the best tactic is wait for her cooldown to get or the cost of the minerals to get pretty low. And then what's usually what I find affordable is maybe like 200, 200 minerals is worthwhile to revive her, and you can revive her wherever you want. So there are some strategies where if you need to get Nova to a certain place, you have her army just kill her, and then you can spend the minerals and respawn her in a different location where you have vision.
Yeah, I have actually done that before, just shooting down Nova and then reviving her elsewhere. If your airlift is on cooldown, or you don't want to use your airlift for just Nova, you can just destroy her on the spot. She's the commander, and she commands her, "Hey guys, shoot me! It's fine. It's totally fine. I can
I can
revive."
take it.
She does come out
Let me
totally
show you
fine.
how it's done.
Oh my god! Come on, guys, shoot me in the face. I can totally take it. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on. All right, next
Uh,
section talks about Nova's tech tree. So, what do you think about this one?
so the first part, the right woman for the job, as was mentioned earlier, her macro is very simplified. So the tech allows her to just focus on her army. The downside is her units are expensive, very
Yeah,
slow to replace. So if you lose them to go nuclear or some other silly business, or your
Silly business.
ally Phoenix decides to recall you into the lava
The
field.
lava. Well, as
Really
Nova, you
problem.
can actually totally take revenge on your ally for that because you have the
Big
airlift.
time.
You can totally do the same
Yep.
thing. I
Yep.
think, except you can
So
also do that to his workers. I think you can also do that to his workers. Throw them in the lava.
for not with tactical airlift, you can't grab workers with tactical airlift.
I thought you can. Oh, I think it might have been Dark Pylon Recall. Anyway,
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
that's the one.
Oh well.
So on mutators like Black Death, it can be a significant problem for Nova. So
Oh yeah.
usually, yeah, Black Death, we usually for the tier list don't recommend her. You can try to go with it and play very safe. The good thing about Black Death is there's a certain range to it, and Nova's units have a lot, or particular siege tanks and liberators have a lot of range. So that
Yeah.
is one way to handle it. But
Or you can
yeah,
just spam Ravens and then have their turrets do the work for you, and make sure the liberators are very far away, and then use the third prestige, so that it's only Nova that has to go out, and their army can just stay at home. The army can just work from home as Nova. Everyone is
and Griffin
quarantined.
airstrike can't catch Black Death either. So
That's
that's another
true.
thing.
Yeah. All right. How about the next part? It's about Nova's micro requirements.
Her micro is, I would say, moderate, a little more than Tychus. The micro usually lies within her siege units because that's, in my opinion, is where most of her power comes in. Her siege tanks and liberators, and to a certain extent, her Robins too. But yeah, having to siege, unsiege is, even though with the liberator upgrades, it makes it really quick. That's still management you have to do, and it can get tricky if you have something like lava burst, going nuclear, where you always have to be watching it, and if you look away for 1 minute, you lose it all.
Your
And
army's gone.
we've already, yeah, we've already stated you lose it all with Nova. That could pretty much cost you the game. There's almost no coming
Yep.
back from it.
Yep. Defensive drone ain't saving you from a direct hit to the face with a nuke. Okay. Let's actually continue. Next up, we have Nova's top bars. What do you think about this one?
Griffin ready for boarding. Yeah, her top bars all are aided by mineral costs, but usually Nova is floating minerals unless you're spamming Hellbats and Marines, and if you are, you're a madman. You shouldn't be spamming those two units.
Or you're just
There are
bored.
cases where you use them. Yeah.
Sometimes players just want a little variety. I can totally
Yeah.
understand that. You've been bored. You've been using liberators, Ravens, siege tank Goliaths to death, and then you just kind of want a change of pace.
Want
You
to
want to
spice
go,
things up.
yeah. You would just want to make things more interesting, to keep yourself engaged, keep yourself interested in the co-op. I get it. I get it. I'm totally there.
E1 inhumaneness with elite Marines.
Well, actually, it doesn't have to be inhumane if you play it carefully. If you use defensive drone,
Yes.
and then you play Nova like Raynor plays the Hyperion, and just take out all the dangerous units so that the rest of your army can move in and be still cost effective, I think it's still a pretty effective way to go.
No doubt, no doubt. It requires a lot more attention, a lot more micromanagement on your part, but it's definitely doable.
Yeah.
Uh,
But yeah,
the
talking about
next one,
yeah,
yeah. So defensive drones are a huge asset. It's like there's so many players that I I've seen that they are guaranteed floating minerals because I haven't seen a Griffin airstrike. I haven't seen any defensive drones, but they start losing units left and right. And it's like, please use your top bars. That's what they're there for.
that's what they're
That's
there
what
for,
co-op is. I mean, in general, that's what co-op is about. You should be using your top bars. That's what's supposed to give you the edge. This
right?
is not ladder. Yeah.
Speaking
So
of ladder,
you usually
the reason the top bars are not in 1v1 is because the top bars are very fun to use, but they're not very fun to be used on. That's why, yeah. Imagine if you're just massing a big army and you're ready to destroy your opponent, and then suddenly, as you move in with your entire army, he just uses time stop, and then this invisible army starts destroying your expensive fleet of not battle cruisers, expensive army of, let's say, ascendants, and then you can't do anything about it. That's very unfun. But yeah, the reason it is available in co-op is because the developers know it's fun and it's very powerful. So that's what you play co-op for. You can't use those in 1v1 because it's not very fair, but you can use those in co-op because it's fun. So totally use them.
Some strong top bars that come to mind, which I am so glad the AI doesn't have. Griffin airstrike, pulse cannon, concentrated beam. Amon does have pure fire beam though, but not the pure fire beam that we like
Yeah,
to associate with carrots.
that's
Yeah, something.
pre level 10, think level 8, something like that. Also, I would be more afraid about contaminated strike because it just drops anywhere,
Oh, that would be a nightmare. That
right?
would be an absolute nightmare. Or the Zerg call down
Dessert.
in your mineral line.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness, that's a nightmare.
Oh
That's an absolute nightmare. Anyway, anything else to mention about the top
dear.
bars?
Tactical airlift, quickly moving, as we already alluded to. It's mostly can do unit. It mostly does units. It doesn't do workers. But yeah, you can use it for. You can use it offensively. You can use it for defensively. One of the great places I like to recommend using is if you're going nuclear. If you have your liberators, siege tanks all sieged up, taking out an objective, and then you see the big red glow from going nuclear over you. You can Griffin airlift them up,
Yeah.
let the nuke land, and then just repop them back down. And when you repop them back down, they are still in siege mode if you don't move their location, so they can continue to keep on firing. So you don't have to do that extra micro step. And it's also great for protecting yourself or your ally. Many times I've seen my ally, he was in a very bad position, about to lose his whole army. Used Griffin airlift, picked him up, and then after it went, the nuke went off, drop him back down, and I got a nice happy face and thank you from ally, which is a good feeling.
That is a good feeling. Absolutely. I would just warn against that in particular when your army is in a tight spot that has no or one avenue of exit, because if you drop them there again and they get targeted again, it's
Mhm.
basically you just delayed the inevitable. So if that
Exactly.
happens and you have to use the airstrike, I would rather drop them somewhere where they can just walk out of range in case they get targeted again, or just back in the base so that they at least retain their army, or you retain your
Yeah.
army.
They may be a little annoyed that they have to walk again, but it's
It's better
much
than
less
losing them,
annoying to walk. Yes, exactly.
right?
And
Better
then
be annoyed than die.
the last paragraph is just talking about the courtesy of using airlift on your ally. So just be mindful of that. Don't try not to be a punk about it unless they deserve it.
Well, Alice always deserve it. Just kidding. Anyway, uh, the only thing I like about this one, or the only thing I find funny, is that they use Griffon instead of Griffin. I think it's spelled as Griffin in the game, but if
Mhm.
I don't know the lore behind this, maybe it should be spelled Griffon. Maybe the original version in English or whatever language should be spelled Griffon, but I find it interesting they use that instead of Griffin. I don't know. What is the correct version?
I don't go either way. I've seen just nomenclature wise, both of them have been the representation of that mythical beast with that is like part
Yeah,
lion has wings or
yeah.
kind of I don't know if lion or bird beak something like that. So
Whichever the case,
it's
you can be rest assured that me and Evelyn are both Griffans. Let's move on. Next up, we have Synergies. Let's start with Alarak, the Protoss commander. What do you think?
so synergy is Moderate with Nova, I would say a little better. Havocs with Nova's units are pretty substantial. It's having that extra range on your Marines. I don't. The one thing I'm not too sure about is does the Havoc's range upgrade affect Liberators in Liberation mode?
I don't. When they siege up already, it doesn't make the circle larger. I don't think.
Yeah. So if it did, that would be interesting because there
That'd be
was
interesting.
a ladder update that happened. So
Yes.
people are talking
Actually,
how
do the
strong that
Havocs
is.
increase the range of Nova's penetrating blast? Because that would be insane.
Yeah, especially when you have the upgrade on it
Yeah.
as is.
It'll,
Honestly, I'm not too sure about that. It's pretty substantial already, and with her blink, I don't know. I probably won't notice it if it did.
yeah. Oh well. Aside from that, what else would their synergy be?
The major synergy, I think, the major synergy that Nova has with almost any commander is just being able to drop defensive drones anywhere.
Which, by the
Alarak
way, Allah can overcharge.
or Alarak can overcharge,
Yeah.
and so there's a huge synergy on that aspect. The other aspect is Alarak, if they're going for ascendance, definitely appreciate having
Defensive
defensive drones
drone.
being dropped when when
Absolutely.
they when they come out
100%.
fresh out of the warp gate. Yeah. Uh,
Also, Alarak doesn't have a natural way of healing his units, so the Raven's repair drones will be very much appreciated by your Alarak ally. I guarantee you that.
and without Death Fleet, Alarak doesn't have a good way to relocate. So as mentioned here, tactical airlift can help, especially if you're like running or in some people like to run P2 Alarak. So you have no means of good relocation, and airlift could help with that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. Artanis, what do you think?
Artanis, decent synergy. So being able, again, Nova helps to keep herself and allies alive with defensive drones. Artanis, if non P3, has an inherent way of giving a second chance to expensive units from the brink of their destruction, or shield overcharge on Nova's units is greatly appreciated. So the one thing that I find a little funny here is Nova can provide better anti-air than Artanis's Dragoons. Hard to say.
More like the other way
You can
around.
make a lot of you can make a lot of Dragoons now. So let's consider just quickly anti-air options that Nova has. Nova herself, Marines, Goliath, Ghost, Liberators. One thing that Artanis cannot do to take out air, wipe out a whole airwave that is like stretched in a long, thin line.
Solar bombardment?
Yeah, I don't. They have to all walk through it. So it, it's it could be done, but if the attack wave kind of comes in like more of a spread pattern, then you might miss a few of them.
I
So
guess.
hard to say. Either it yeah, either way that there is advantages and disadvantages. To speak to that, the clear advantage to Griffin airstrike and solar bombardment, cooldown time.
Hmm. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Makes sense.
So yeah, I that's the only thing I both of them have good anti-air in my opinion. It's just in different forms.
Yeah.
To say Nova doesn't have good anti-air, if you want to look at commanders that don't have good anti-air, look at Frozen and Kerrigan.
I guess, yeah. One more thing for Artanis. We did mention this earlier, but Artanis' Chrono Boost will be very much appreciated by Nova's
Mm.
buildings. They can produce their stuff a lot faster. Let's move on. Next up, we have Vorazun. Perfect match for Nova. What do you think about that?
So just mentioned that Borazun and the other lady doesn't have a great anti-air, but for Nova herself can provide good hard hitting anti-air, and Orzune's crowd control abilities, keeping stuff contained still or spinning around in a toilet bowl, and while Liberators are raining death and having uh predator missiles flying toward them is like fantastic.
Yeah, alley play. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yes, yes, and both of them have good mobility. Orzune's
Dark Pylon Recall.
Dark Pylon Recall, and then also her, as mentioned in the first sentence, the Strike from the Shadows passive, being able to boost the attack power of anything that's cloaked. So you have cloak ghosts are not too great. I mean, they go pew pew more, but nothing too
I
phenomenal.
mean, they're fine.
The
They're okay.
Yeah, they're okay. The attack speed on Nova is definitely nice, and the attack speed on the Covert Banshees is pretty significant. I know there are some people that are fans of the Covert Banshees. I'm one of them. Tutu's one of them. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I think they're
it's
fine.
a good synergy on that. Yeah, they're fine. They're nothing too phenomenal, but having every little bit of extra help,
Usually, I'm
especially
too gas
when you have
starved
close
to buy
synergies.
them. Usually, I'm too gas starved to buy Banshees. I'm usually devoting everything to Liberators and Ravens and upgrades.
Mm.
But I guess Banshees are fine. They would definitely be better with Nova or with Vorzun as an ally because they have the Strike from the Shadows passive. Also, you can also have your army fight in the Dark Pylon. That'll give them Cloak. Plus, the units getting healed by the Raven, I think, also get Cloak. So they might also get an extra
Yep.
damage boost. So that's pretty good. Aside from that, the
Yep.
usual Vorazun stuff really help out. The Chrono Boost, the Black Hole, the Time Stop, they're all pretty good. Plus, on certain maps, you can just bug the train. Or on a certain map, you can just bug the train. Pretty good. As to Nova, you
Bug the
can...
train or skip a whole hybrid wave at the end.
Yeah. And also, Nova's way of helping Vorazun is, first of all, the best drone. And second of all, the airlift. And you can also, again, like Alarak, Vorazun doesn't have a natural way of repairing her units. So the Ravens healing drone, very helpful with that. Uh,
Oh, no doubt.
yeah. Also, Vorazun's early game sucks. So Nova can definitely shore that up for her. Let Vorazun tech up, mass up a good army so that they don't trade with Amon, and she'll be very thankful that you as Nova gave her that time to power up. Anything else? Oh, detection! Oh, that's right. Vorazun sucks at detection. Who's good at detection? Nova. Match made in heaven.
No, it was phenomenal.
Yeah, detection.
Yes.
That's probably the biggest thing. Some of you guys are probably like, "Come on, detection's the biggest thing. Why aren't you mentioning it?" I did mention it. You're welcome. Let's move on. Karax. All right, what do you think?
Arax is an effective teammate, hands down, easily.
Hands
Because
down.
if you're going
Feet down too.
Ravens and Liberators, having the repair beam on them is a godsend.
And the
It-
passive chrono too.
And passive chrono onto all your production structures, so you're gonna be able to churn things out. You might not even notice the how many charges you have because your resources might not be able to keep up with it.
Exactly. And a
So,
super chrono. Oh my goodness. That's gonna be incredible.
and as I mentioned earlier, like if you're combining like E3 and Carax, that's that's a killer combination in itself because just walk wherever you want and Carax rains down space lasers uninhibited because Amon can't do anything to stop that.
Exactly. And Karax
There's
also defends.
nothing that can
And
exactly.
you can supplement Karax's defense because Karax's defense is very tanky, but it doesn't have splash. So you can add siege tanks behind it, you can add ravens on top of it, and they'll be very impregnable. Close to impregnable. Oh,
Yep.
energizers! Energizers are amazing for Nova's army. Nova siege
Energizers
tanks.
on Liberators.
Oh my goodness, that's insane. They're gonna destroy enemies so fast with energizers. Very very nice. Very
Yeah.
good synergy. Very effective teammate. This is 100% correct. Anything else?
Nope. We can't stress how
Amazing. The
how
combo.
major this
Yeah.
this yeah this synergy is.
All right. Let's move on. How about Phoenix? What do you think about him?
Phoenix works well with Nova is a very good statement. Reading through most of this, I agree with most of it. He has the ability to keep up with Nova. He provides protection, which that's the one thing I do not see here mentioning using
Conservators?
conservators. Yeah.
Yeah.
So conservators on top of defensive drone is like you have a very tanky army
It's like
and
having lone wolf on your entire army.
exactly. And then Phoenix himself, it's like he doesn't really care too much if he's losing his army. He just sends in another Caudalis, another Mojo, another Talus. But yeah, if they have retention, it's like you're gonna have a lot of minerals to bank up, and it's just gonna be a steamroll.
Yeah, both
So
of them are very powerful.
yeah, in their own ways, and they both have good ways of keeping up with each other, keeping up in each other in terms of their damage output,
100%.
timings, and mobility.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Hard agree. Let's move on. We don't have a Zeratul here actually, but what do you think about Nova synergies with Zeratul?
It's the usual that we've done for most of the wikis. Does Nova really need Zero Tool there?
And
To a certain
conversely, does
extent,
Zeratul really lead Nova there?
yeah,
It's more like
yeah,
when Zeratul and Nova are in it, they're not synergizing, they're more competing.
yeah. It's pretty much it's a nut stomp against Amon at that point. Uh,
Yeah.
the only thing I can really say is at the very beginning, Nova does provide a little more early game presence, so that allows Zero Tool to power up, get his fragments, or get his cannons up and going. So there's that. Um,
Yeah.
I would say Nova helps kind of just plug up that very short window where Zeratul is still a little weak.
You can also, on certain maps, you can also help Zeratul cage his artifact fragments so that he can have them. He doesn't need to build as many buildings to cage that fragment spawn. So that'll also help. Uh, I guess the shield guards also help you out with that reflective barrier thing. That does help.
Mhm.
And Zeratul can kind of keep up with Nova, especially that void ally thing. Oh, speaking of synergies, Zeratul can use the demote dude to buff
Yep.
Noah's army and demote the enemy. Very good. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Enhance attack speed on liberators, on siege liberators. That's you'll
Oh yeah.
see trains melt in less than a second. So
And depending
yeah.
on what map you are on, and also how the Zeratul plans or how the Zeratul expands, if Zeratul uses a legion on his rocks, chances are he'll send them to your rocks too. So that's pretty good. You don't need to rush out like a Raven or Marines or a couple of tourists to expand. You can let the Zeratul do that for you. Pretty good. All right. Okay.
Moving on.
Let's move on. So we've been talking about Raynor a lot, but does he synergize with Nova? What do you think?
The it starts off Raynor is a polar opposite of Nova, and that is very, very close to uh the major point. He is much more not friendly to most players. Even experienced players have a little hard time managing Raynor as compared to Nova.
There's a lot of stuff to
But
manage with Raynor. That's true.
I do like in the second sentence. However, due to Raynor's use of medics, heal both biological and mechanical, that can be a significant buff.
That
And
is.
not only a heal. they confer a damage reduction, a significant damage reduction.
Yeah.
So if they're healing during combat, that can be a major difference.
Yes. And also having Nova on the
Rainer,
field. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
uh, yeah, and Rainer, we all know most of his units are very squishy. Having a defensive drone over Rainer's units helps Nova and Rainer together, so they can push really hard together. And the really good synergy about Rainer, I think, is the Hyperion.
Yes.
A lot of people tend to forget that Hyperion has a damage buff aura, or I mean, an aura associated with that enhances all the units around it.
Yes.
So by by putting that near like your liberators, it turns from, if let's say you have your maxed out liberators at um, attack upgrades 3, you have your Hyperion that's going to bring them up to the equivalent of 5.
Yeah.
So
Pretty good. All right. One more thing I would like to say. Nova can also help Rainer in this way. If Nova's on the field, Rainer does need to scan. That means he can devote all his orbital energy into mules, which lends itself to having a bigger army. Because you don't need to spend your scans as detection. You can just have Nova detect for you. That's pretty big. And yeah, like I said, like our Eviling said, the Hyperion's really good, not just for buffing the army though. It can also go into the base and snipe the dangerous units like siege tanks, like High Templar, like Vipers, which will make it easier for both Nova and Rainer to push in. So that's another really good way that Rainer can help Nova. Anything else?
so the ways that Rainer uh, helps protect Nova, medics,
Yeah,
and
medics.
Hyperion with the PDDs.
Oh yeah, that
The
too. The
PDDs
point
are
defense droid
huge.
is really good. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so you already know what this one will say. What do you think with Swan?
I wonder, Mr. Gas Station. Let me look at the sentence. With his Vespian harvesters providing Nova much needed gas to afford and costliness. Yes,
It's true though.
that is very true.
These are factual.
Def, Nova, every time they see a Swan ally, they're ready. Like, oh, right, I can make all the liberators I want. I'm not constrained by this stupid gas income anymore, which
Yeah,
is nice.
it
But
is nice.
I mean, most Nova players should know how to operate without that. It's just extra icing on top of the cake of playing
Exactly.
Nova.
Exactly. Plus, you were gonna continue?
So, with that being said, again, Juan is more than just a gas station. Please, kids,
True.
remember
True.
he's he's much more than that.
He's a
His
chief
defensive
engineer.
structures are, yes, his defensive structures are top notch. They're better because they have splash, and they are more durable because they have the extinguisher upgrades. And the laser drill in itself is a huge asset if wielded correctly.
Yeah. Anything else to add? So I would like to add a couple things. The first one is on certain maps, Dead of Night, Rifts to Core Hall, Scythe of Amon, Nova can just walk into the enemy base, and the laser drill will just destroy the objective, and you don't even have to expend any units. You can go completely in your base with everything else. You can just stay in your base for the entirety of the game, and let the laser drill just snipe whatever main objective Nova's giving vision to. It's amazing. You can just chill in the base, and you don't have to expand. You don't have to risk any of your units. You can just park your siege tanks in your base, your liberators, your ravens. You don't have to worry. That's I think a very good synergy, right?
It's a great synergy. It's very similar to the Carax and Nova synergy that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
You have P1 laser drill,
Except
you walk
the
P3 Nova in.
yeah.
Yeah,
Except the laser doesn't require
it's a
APM
little slower.
spamming. That's true,
Exactly.
but 50 DPS, pretty good, I would think. Anyway,
Pretty sizable.
the second thing
Adds up.
is actually a question: do Swan's tech reactors benefit Nova in any way?
No,
No.
no.
So it's
It
just
only benefits Jimmy.
that's
It's
very
only for
sad.
looks.
That's very sad.
Yeah.
Although I would like to
But
try that at some point, just to see. Maybe they can call down like twice the number of liberators or something. That would be amazing.
I,
Um,
I thought it could do that, but yeah, I every time I play Nova and I encounter like a Terran uh enemy comp, I always make it a point if it's not none of those environmental mutators, I try to style on Amon by dropping my barracks and taking his tech reactor.
that's very
Just for
nice.
just because I can.
That's actually very nice. Uh,
But it doesn't do anything. Doesn't
anything
do anything.
else to synergize for Swan and Nova? I guess you can kind of do sort of. I guess uh, Swan can help Nova snipe stuff. For example, using a concentrated beam or a Hercules to give vision somewhere for Nova to drop an airstrike on, or to airlift both armies too. That might be a pretty good synergy. Yeah.
Another good synergy is defensive drone and science vessels with defensive matrix.
Oh,
So yeah, I mean you can pretty much make things unkillable.
make
You
things.
you look and see what the defensive drone is taking care of, and if you don't see that green shell over it, then you send the science vessel in, keep on putting the green shell on until enemy's dead.
Enemies dead.
Yeah,
All right, very nice.
yeah.
Let's move on. How about Han and Horner? What do you think?
I'd say moderate synergy is pretty on there. Horner is being known for being a glass cannon, so they can definitely output the damage, but very very fragile units, especially the Han units. The Hornet units, not so much. They can definitely uh, add in significant staying firepower and punching power. Defensive drones, I agree that putting defensive drones over Han units is maybe not
Useless.
the best.
Well, maybe
Yeah,
your galleons.
I wouldn't say it's they useless. Yeah, keeping galleons alive is a
Massive.
significant thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes there's nothing Hun and Horner can do to increase the build time of their galleons. And once they start losing them en masse, then they're going to be down for a while, especially if they're not making use of the Horner units.
Mm.
That's pretty much they'll be out of the count. So the other aspect is the galleons itself. Their their mobility is not the greatest. They don't have like tactical jump or they don't have any speed boost. So if they're caught out in a bad place, mm, there's a synergy, not not a great synergy that you have to rescue your ally, but it's possible to okay, your all your galleons are in a bad spot. Let's relocate them. Nova
Yeah.
can do that.
Yeah. Pretty good.
And the other aspect uh, that is not mentioned here, the salvage. There's a degree that the salvage
Mm.
is useful if you do encounter mutation where you're gonna have losses, like for sure losses on Nova's side, and you can do things to try to mitigate it, and the salvage would be one way. Having units that fulfill different multiple roles. So let's say, for example, if you have to take on air units and you use up all your charges in a Goliath, you can fall back on Marines. So you can pick up the salvage from the Goliath and then churn out Marines,
Yeah.
kind of a way to stem that loss. But then again, if you have high attrition,
It's not
should
gonna.
you be playing Nova in the first place? I don't know.
Well, just play better. Like I think. I think.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think we've established this in the beginning. Anyone can play Nova. I mean, if you lose a lot of use with Nova, you'll lose even more with Rainer. So I think just play better. Just keep at it. Just keep
yeah,
practicing, and uh, use your top bars more. Use your airlift. Use your defensive drone. Use your Nova. Always to help.
absolutely.
Always to help preserve your army. Anything else to add with Hot and Horner? I guess the airstrike is also a good way to take out dangerous units, but you have Nova for that also. You can also use the
And
airstrike to provide vision, so yeah, we're pretty good.
I would also like to add Han and Horner, they have their mag mines. It's a great asset to have. So if Nova is hunkered in a very specific location and ready to take on an attack wave, drop a few mag mines there.
Yeah.
It will definitely help alleviate to any of the stragglers or the more tankier units so that the liberators can just one shot things.
In specific mutations, Hot and Horner can make Nova not worry anymore about Void Rifts or Magnificent.
Hmm.
Both
Yep.
both are not mutations that Nova can easily deal with, and for Magmines, she can use the third prestige to get around them, but I do think the Magmines still trigger a Nova even with Super Cloak. But, Hot and Horror can absolutely take those mines out for her. And again, Void Rifts. Probably Hot and Horror's best mutator, relatively speaking,
Hmm.
compared to other commanders. So they're pretty good at deleting rifts while Nova does everything else. Uh, let's move on. Tychus, what do you think?
Yep. Like I said, Nova, very well known for it because both are very micro oriented and very
Oh yeah.
macro light.
Oh yeah.
So both of them can just focus on the offense, and sometimes the best offense is a good defense. And in many times, the combination of two, you they essentially run into the like Nova and Zeratul synergy. Is like they're not working with each other;
They're competing.
they're competing at each. Yeah,
They want to end the map first. Oh my
yeah.
goodness.
But I
Uh,
really like the key that Nova can protect the outlaws with her defensive drone. That's pretty huge. If your ally is running P2 Tychus, most likely they won't have a healer out early, so having a defensive drone help soak up a lot of the hits early on is going to be very much appreciated by the Tychus player.
yeah. Also cleaning up buildings, cleaning up bases. Nova can do that better with liberators than Tychus with just his gun or his outlaw's guns. Tychus is much better or is much more efficient at just pushing forward and just taking out the most difficult bases, and the cleanup duty can be left to Nova if it amounts to that. So that'll also work. Anything else for
Yes,
Tychus?
something small nuance is Tychus directly doesn't have any specific air units unless he's getting Vega out or using medevac platforms to gain vision. But
Oh yeah.
like for example, if you're trying to get to the northern island on Temple of the Pass, he can't do that on its own without Vega.
Oh,
So
he can actually.
Nova.
Yeah, he can technically. It costs 400 minerals. It takes some time to fly over to the other side.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the command center
He can do
strategy.
that.
That's right. That is right. That's right.
But just Nova providing vision is cheaper, so
Yep.
you still get points there. But if worst
And
comes
then
to worst, Tychus can get there on his own. It's just expensive and time consuming, and like, why would you do that? Oh
in a
my god.
very niche scenario, if yeah, if Tychus is out of the medevac charges
Oh
and
yeah.
needs to get to somewhere, Nova potentially has that last ditch transportation cost.
Yeah, which is kind of a shame that Tychus also can't pick up Nova stuff. It's like a
Mm.
one way street here. Unrequited airlifts. Anything else for Tychus?
Mhm. Other than that, the second paragraph is pretty much hitting all the nuances that I had in mind the regarding the lackluster defensive structures on both sides, but Tychus is even more lackluster.
Yeah.
And Nova's both of them have very powerful call downs. It's just Tychus's nukes hit a little harder. And has the follow up of Odin hitting with that heavy health pool that it has
Oh
and
yeah.
AoE splash damage.
Oh yeah,
and it takes down structures really well.
absolutely. Let's move on. So there's no section here for Arcturus. So what do you think about Nova synergies with Arcturus?
Nova's Nova is more of a frontliner. Octurus with his ESO with using ESO play, he'll be a very significant backliner and support. So as Nova pushes forward, you just essentially have creeping barrage going forward, which is a very powerful tactic. I mean, that's why they call artillery the king of the battlefield, and then the people
Who
on the
calls
front
them
line
that?
just establish the front
I've never heard anyone call that
lines.
to artillery.
If you most 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 of military history, artillery is considered the
Really?
king of the battlefield. If you look at what's not to get political, but in modern day, what's happening in Ukraine, that's why so much artillery shells is being used in that part of the world. It's artillery still reigns supreme and controls the battlefield.
Wow.
It's you think of it as associated to Starcraft. You want to create an area of
You you
Amon. If you're here,
you're dead.
you're not gonna be here. You're not gonna be here anymore. So being able to create those fields
Just kind
of
of a
control,
wall of bullets, essentially.
a wall of destruction and death.
Something
Yes.
like that. Yeah, that's fair.
Mhm.
Okay, so Arcturus' synergy, I guess, boils down to I can shoot very very far and destroy a lot of stuff there. That's fair. That's fair. Okay, I think we should move on to the Zerg commanders. All right. So moving on. What do you think about Kerrigan?
Good synergy with Nova. I would definitely agree with that. Now, it's synergy, not so much. Usually, most Nova players gravitate toward Ravens and Liberators, so they can't really make use of the Malignant Creep or Omega Worms,
Yeah, a little
which
sad.
is one of Kerrigan's greatest assets. But a Simulation Ore is definitely a
Oh
major
yeah,
asset
the money
and
wave.
mobilization wave.
That's
So
true.
yeah, so good synergy. I would definitely vouch for that. I'm glad they didn't say like amazing synergy or great synergy. So
Yeah, in fact, I
yeah.
would call this like more like moderate synergy. I mean, they can push together, and
Mhm.
uh, I guess the defensive drone can help Kerrigan stay on the field for longer, and of course Nova herself
Mhm.
can help Kerrigan stay on the field for longer. And yeah,
Or almost
there's
indefinitely. I mean,
almost
the
indefinitely
we've all mentioned before. Kerrigan it relies on Kerrigan Hero, and losing her early on
is
really
deadly.
hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it hurts the early and mid game. So dropping defensive drones just on Kerrigan is very helpful, mitigating all that damage and just making sure she gets to past the mid game.
All right, let's move on. How about Zagara?
Cigar doesn't have great synergy with Nova. Yeah, that's the Cigar is just build a whole bunch of banelings, build a whole bunch of scourge or aberrations and corruptors and a move them in the general direction and uh Nova, you clean up the mess afterwards.
That's pretty much it. Yeah. I was like,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and if you got a siege area or defend area, Zagara can build bio launchers for that sustained area effect damage that can hit both ground and air.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, most for in general, Zagara is kind of usually with most commanders is she's kind of doing her own thing.
I'm thinking of some specific ways that Nova and Zagara could synergize. I'm thinking maybe if Zagara is going for the first prestige, she can mass up Balings and Scourge in one spot, and then Nova walks in with the third prestige near, for example, a
Yes.
void sliver, and then airlifts all those Balings and Scourge to that void sliver, and then there's no more
Yep.
void sliver. That's
Yeah.
that's a funny way to. I think Nova at third prestige in general is really great and lends itself to that sniping strategy by just walking in and then airlifting death to the main objectives.
Absolute death. You can do that with Zagara, you can do that with Jimmy, Spider Mines, you can do that
Wait,
with
you can do it for spider
Magmines,
mines?
You can do that with Spider Mines. It'll pick up Spider Mines, but
Really?
there's a there's a catch to it. In
They
order
have to
to
be
do it,
unburrowed,
you
right?
have to
Yeah. Uh.
that can be picked up. So the Spider Mines don't count as a valid unit. So you got to put something a sacrificial unit or something that's gonna stay there to be airlifted with the Spider Mines.
I think your audio cut out at some point, and like it just cut your
Oh,
entire explanation.
sorry, sorry.
And it's not your
Maybe
fault. It's
maybe
just
I
it's forbidden
okay.
knowledge. It's not meant to be shared.
Okay. We'll keep it as that. We'll keep it as
It's
that.
forbidden knowledge,
Let's
guys.
just
Oh
all
my
right.
goodness. But yeah, I think that's one way that Zagara and Nova is not great.
I
So the
I
point
think
stands.
another good synergy for Zagara is defensive drone and P3. So
Yeah.
you deep tunnel to a remote place. Zagara is under attack, but if she can take that location, it'll be very critical, like
I
unlock and load,
mean,
and
not just
then
Zagara
drop a defensive
herself.
drone for her.
Not just Zagara herself.
Yep,
Even the hunter killers would be great with
exactly,
defensive drone. It's pretty good. All right.
exactly. hmm
So let's move on. Abathur, what do you think?
Abathur, he provides a lot on the early game. So Nova's early game is not bad, but Abathur can really get things going on the early part if the mutation set or map is conducive for it. And when Abathur does get his first Brutalist online, dropping a defensive drone on it
Oh
is
yeah. Oh
pretty
my
major
goodness.
for it.
Woo. It's gonna
The
just.
thing is tanky as is already, and you're
Whew.
just making sure it retains its health pool.
The
Wow,
symbiote and
it's
defensive drone. Oh my goodness. That thing's gonna be just unkillable. It's even a
yep,
nightmare.
yep.
It
And
must gonna
then when
feel how we feel when we saw the hybrid for the first time on what was that map? Piercing the Shroud with Raider and just a bunch of Marines. Amos gonna
oh
feel how
dear,
we felt when we had to
oh
run away from
dear.
that hybrid. Oh my goodness.
Or there's that one mission where you had to go against a brutalist in a science facility
It was that same
with
one.
like supply.
Is
Oh,
that
that's
same
the one
one?
piercing the
Is
shroud.
that same one? Piercing the Shroud.
Oh, oh dear.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's gonna be like that essentially for Amon. Uh I
Now, imagine a brutalist that just deep tunnels, shows up. It's like, "Hi guys." Then a defensive drone pops up into it. It's like, "Okay, we got an unkillable brutalist." Then suddenly, a Griffin airlift drops drops the Liberators,
Liberators.
Nova, and a few other things.
Oh my goodness.
And it's like, "Okay, I'm waving the white flag now. Please
Um
stop. I'm dead."
uh, I mean, yeah, that sounds nice until like a big red circle appears over the entire thing, and you just use your airlift cooldown.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's a little disheartening. Hopefully, it's or it could be flipped the other way around. Maybe it's
Yeah,
not Amon's big red circle. Maybe it's
it's
Nova's big
Nova's
red
big red
circle.
circle. Yeah.
Everyone rejoice.
Okay, okay. I think
There's there's a lot of fun things you can do with Nova and Abathur, in my opinion.
absolutely, absolutely. Plus, her Abathur's Devourers can help Nova with sniping stuff, because
hmm
Nova's Liberators. I mean, when Nova's Liberators are shooting down, for example, Detonite buildings, and they're under
hmm
attack by stuff like Mutalisks, you can have a couple of Devourers there to clean up, and just help, just move along. And speaking of Detonite, Abathur can keep the base safe, and can use Mend when Nova's stuff are taking damage, and she just happens to not have a charge of defensive drone. That'll help. And the the Toxin Nest also pretty good. That just uh delaying the time that, because yes, Nova's good the early game, but the ultra early game, the pre 4 minute early game, Abathur can absolutely help Nova with that. For example, the first wave of Rest of Core Hall, Abathur can do that on his own. In fact, Abathur can pretty much clean up the first shard on his own. I guess one thing that both of them kind of suck at is early rock clearing. Zagar, maybe I should have mentioned that for Zagara. Zagar can clear rocks really early, really nicely. But for Abathur, he has to invest in a couple
Mm.
of spine crawlers, a Toxic Nest, and attention. Just to do that, Zagara, for example, doesn't really need just to send Zerglings at the rocks, and the rocks will go down. So that's something that Nova and Abathur can both benefit from a different commander. Anything else?
I would just like to add regarding the Mend and Swarm Kings, especially Mend. Mend is just, yeah, it's a top bar. If you see a Nova and she might be, your Nova ally might be losing a Liberator or a Raven early on just due to bad positioning or bad circumstance, pop that Mend. It's going to be greatly appreciated because it will
Yeah,
get a Liberator pretty much. I mean, even with a few modest points in men, it should get it back up to like halfway health to 75%, and might allow Nova to make sure that very precious, expensive gas
Liberator
unit not
survives.
lost early. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on. Next up, we have Stukov, who is totally a Zerg commander, by the way, because he's in the Zerg section, therefore Zerg commander. What do you think about this one?
It's pretty spot on. In spite of functioning as exact opposites, they complement each other very well. It's like, yeah, they're picking up on shoring up each other's weaknesses.
Yeah,
So Nova has very hard-hitting, expensive units that are not easy to replace. Stukov has a bunch of essentially free units that are
very
very
easy to
expendable,
replace.
but yeah, very easy to replace and just keep on going. So it can allow Nova to buy a lot of time.
Oh yeah,
And but not just that. Stukov's units, especially not just his bio, his mech can complement Nova very well. Having infested siege tanks travel along with Nova's tanks if you're dealing with a heavy ground infestation problem, then yeah, they no Stukov siege tanks shoot just as far as Nova siege tanks when they have the
the
extended
max
upgrade,
range.
and they
Yeah,
don't have to, and they don't have to wait.
yeah,
It's like
absolutely.
as soon as they're ready to, as soon as they siege, they're ready to fire as long as they have the ammo for it.
Yeah,
And if Nova decides to move the siege tanks to somewhere else, you can just deep tunnel and keep on following her. So
yes,
that's a great aspect
definitely.
to it.
Yeah. Just one more thing for Stukov, Abathur, and Zagara. All three have kind of bad detection. I mean, it's not terrible, just kind of bad. Overseers, they got shot. They got shot out of the sky, but Nova is pretty good for a detector because usually she's cloaked. She has abilities to keep herself alive. She can just blink out of the way. You can revive her. So I would say that Nova definitely brings the detection so that Stukov, Abathur, and Zagar don't need to. Right?
Yeah, early detection, 75 mineral, 75 gas, sign me up. Everyone else has
Yeah.
pretty a little more expensive detection. Okay, now you can say that infested missile turrets are detection. Are they the best mobile detection? No. They're mobile detection, they are, but
Technically.
they definitely ain't Nova.
Yeah, definitely. Also, I guess the last thing for Stukov, well, maybe not, but he has giant monsters that can kind of just do a lot of offense while Nova's still powering up with like one or two liberator, or one Raven, two liberators, not a lot going on. The top bars of Stukov can shore up a lot of that early mid game when Nova's army is still starting up, just starting to get powerful, get massed up. And Nova can definitely push alongside these top bars to ensure maximum damage, and even give them the defensive drone. They'll function kind of similarly to that Brutalisk thing, except the Apocalypse has even more splash, and the Alexander, well, has mind control. So
Alexander just clears the skies.
just
I
clear the
mean,
skies.
air Nova's air units are great and all, Liberators in fighter mode, they can hold okay with a defensive drone. Are they great? No, but you send in the Alexander. The Alexander has a damage reduction aura on it, and it
Yeah,
just mind controls all the
air
significant air threats,
and the
especially if you're
ones on the
going against
ground,
her.
and the ones on the ground you just infest. So the livers absolutely have nothing to worry about. Oh
Exactly.
goodness,
Exactly. It's like, oh, a very nasty base. I'll just send in one Alexander. Then
base is gone.
Liberators and Ravens, you clean up everything and all done.
All done. All right,
Yeah.
let's move on. How about the Haka?
Nova and Tatahaka, they overlap in many ways. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Uh, they're both powerful in their own ways. The pack leaders, just the the
They
the
pack a lot
amount
of
of
punch.
yeah, the amount of punch that they deliver, the amount of area they control that allows Nova to either sneak in or to establish her foothold with Liberators and Siege tanks is staggering. And
Yes.
for Dahaka himself, being able to provide that roar and it's to make sure that things are not hitting. It's a damage reduction. So to make sure if there are things that are attacking Nova's units to make sure she doesn't lose it, the roar on top of defensive drones, that's pretty significant.
Yeah,
That is very significant.
definitely will help out. Also, if the Haka doesn't have early detection, Nova's out there. Don't worry. If the Haka is slow to get to level 5, you can provide detection as Nova. So that'll be pretty good. Especially since the Haka doesn't have any other really serious form of detection until you get that, or Primal Worms, but kinda kinda expensive and unwieldy to use because they can only deep tunnel to a certain spot, so you only have detection at that spot. Another thing is the creeper hosts can help you bombard areas like similar to Earth Splitters, where it'll soften them up for Nova's eventual attack, similar to how Pack Eaters would do that. And also, speaking of Pack Eaters with defensive drone. Yeah, yeah, pretty much the same scenario.
Dude, does P2 pack leaders even need defensive drone? I don't
No,
think
but it'd
I've
be
ever
really
seen.
funny. It'd be really
Yeah,
funny if they did.
I mean, the only way I can imagine a P2 pack leader going down is Poopagators, but we all
Focus
know that
down.
they're immune to poop. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even if they get focused down, I've
With
rarely
Avenger.
seen this. Yeah, well, Avenger. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Avenger or Transmutation or both,
Yeah.
but still, yeah, it's a very rare instance. But I mean, if you are encountering those mutators in combination, there's a way out.
Yeah.
One a great so the I do like that he keyed in on the tactical airlift ability because yeah, the Hawkers units, creeper hosts and whatnot, they're powerful and but they have to walk wherever they are once they spawn. So if you're like on the map of Vermilion Prom and your creeper host on one island and you need to get them a little closer, pack airlift them around.
Yeah.
And if you have two, you pack airlift them every 30 seconds.
Speaking of, if the
Pretty
Haka's getting surrounded and he just used all his abilities, he can also airlift out. So, yeah. You
Mhm.
saved your ally like a couple drones, but now that I think about it, the couple drones might actually be cheaper than an airlift. So you know what? Never mind about that.
The
The
intention was good.
attention was good.
Intention.
Thank you, thank you. All right. Anything else for Nova and the Haka? Because other than that, I think they're just kind of similar to a Zeratul and Arcturus and
Yeah,
Taika
yeah.
situation.
Almost to the point they're competing against each other. Yes.
Yeah. With Haka winning, by the way, because Haka is just so good. Uh, we also don't have a Stet Boy section here, but I can imagine Stet Boy and Nova having a lot of synergy, right? From the green zone overcharge, blue
Yeah,
zone,
and a defensive drone.
Super
It's like,
Gary.
oh,
Super Gary
yeah,
can just
as
stay
good
on blue
as.
zone because there's a defensive
Yep,
drone. Oh my goodness. This could be, yeah, it's gonna be
yep.
killable. No,
It's
hybrid is flying.
unkillable and buffing and you got a hero unit that's flying around early on. So you got one that could that has a powerful snipe and shotgun, and one that has Orbs of Death, and both have detection. It's just it's almost yeah, it's unfair to aim on.
Then Step Boy
I
can just let us infestor stick a tentacle into Nova so that Nova will have infinite energy and less cooldown.
yeah, and if it was a P3 Nova, it's yeah,
Oh,
yeah, having that extra cooldown on sabotage drone. The
and the
hard
nuke.
part would be sneaking it. Yeah, and the nuke. The hard part would be just sneaking the infestor in to follow Nova. That's
You can burrow,
would
right?
be the only.
You can move well
You
burrowed,
can burrow. You can burrow. Yeah, but
right?
you got to be careful because I mean your Nova ally is going to be going into places and not realizing, oh, my tentacle monster can't follow me because it doesn't have super cloak and it's going to get wiped off the face of the planet as soon as I get into range.
You know what? I'm gonna change the title of this. Instead of Nova Wiki review, this should be the title is gonna be. We could have worded this whole thing better. Anyway, I think that's everything for. I think. I
Uh,
think
so good,
that's. I
so
think it's
good. All
everything
right.
for. I think it's
Yep.
everything for all the commanders. Um, yeah, that's overall impression for this tier list or this tier list, this wiki. Yeah, not a lot that we could criticize on it. It's
Mhm.
mostly facts. It's pretty straightforward. There are some that could be worded here and there. For example, what eviling have I been saying? But for the most part, pretty good. Yeah.
Yep. Agreed. As I said, most people have a lot of experience with Nova, so I kind of expected this one to be pretty good.
Again, we could have worded that better. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching. If you have an idea for it, also please leave that in a comment. I'll see you guys next time.